This is not your father's Oldsmobile. Take a look at what we've got. The 1990s just got high. This is not your father's Oldsmobile. This is the new generation of Olds.
This is a buyer's guide for the 1990 through 92 Oldsmobile Toronado Trofeo. I'll put up a picture of the comment that suggested this idea. So thank you very much for giving me the idea of this, and to help other Toronado enthusiasts of when they want to buy one of these cars, what to look for, what to avoid, and so on. So we're going to use my 1991 Oldsmobile Toronado Trofeo as an example. This is a decent car. I would put this as a scale of 7 out of 10 on a scale of 1 being horrible, 10 being good. Also, sorry for the wind. This is the last warm day in Michigan, and unfortunately it is very windy. So please mind that. I do not have a place to actually film this. But anyways, let's begin, and we'll start with the body, then we'll go to the interior, and then finally engine bay / suspension. So we start off with the front end. Now mine has damage to the front and center nose piece. It's not very bad, and the Oldsmobile symbol is missing. That flew off when I was power washing it. So you want to check for the main parts is any damage to the front, to the nose panel, to the doors, to the grille especially, because those are extremely hard to find. And you want to make sure the headlight doors work. Make sure they're both up and equal. Make sure when you go like this that they are equal, parallel with this line here, which they are. It shows that the headlight motor is good, which we'll talk about more when we go to the engine bay. You also want to make sure that your turn signals are flush with the bumper. You want to make sure that there's no soft spots in the crash bar. And you want to take a look at the fog lights. Now mine has a broken driver's side fog light, so that'd be a deduction point off right there, because fog lights are extremely hard to find. There's one on eBay for sale. They want $200 for it, which is insane. But I have extras. I've saved them up over the years. But finding parts cars is the biggest thing to find body panels on these. You also want to take a look at the lower lip. Make sure there's no damage there. There will be scrapes and bruises, especially like on mine right here, where someone probably scraped a driveway or a curb or something at one point. That's probably why the fog light is also damaged. So if you see a damaged fog light, take a look at that lower lip. And you also have this air dam underneath as well, and you want to make sure that's not hanging or anything. Now we'll go to the side of the car. This is the same for both sides, so we'll just go along the one side and then we'll go to the rear and the roof. So you want to take a look at the side, look at the side markers, make sure that there's no breaks. There is a crease in here from when they first sort of molded this, so don't worry about that. That is on there on all cars. Take a look at your pinstriping if your Toronado has that. Take a look at the wheels and tires. Make sure that there is no weird tread wear. That means that something in the suspension could be wrong. And look at the tires themselves. A person that cares about the car will have good tires on here. I have Goodyear assurances. They're some of the best tires that I've ever bought, you know, for the money. You know, there's better out there, but this is the best that you can buy for the money. Look at the rims. Mine need to be resurfaced. You can see sort of this haziness over it, over the hubcap, over the actual aluminum. These are aluminum 16-inch wheels. So, you know, mine has corrosion here, and there's no real curb rash on them, but it's just, what happens on these wheels is that the clear coat peels. And also watch out for curb rash, because it's very hard to get these straight again after they've been curbed. Keep going along here. Take a look at the gaps on the doors. This is how a gap should be. It should be pretty darn even all throughout the door, all the way to the bottom. Check the bottom of the door here, or the fender. This is where they usually like to rust. They like to rust right here, or right here, and even underneath here. But as long as you don't see anything here, you should be all right. Take a look along the valance. Make sure there's no scuffs there. Quarters, the door, make sure there's no rust on the door. They like to rust right here. And when you open them, they like to rust right in this area as well. Keep going along the body. Mine has damage on this quarter. I have a dent here, another dent here with a scratch, tons of scratches. I'm going to have this redone. That also takes another point off, so now this car is an 8 value. Take a look at this rim. This rim is actually really nice. It's just got the clear coat flaking. You can get that redone at a shop. Take a look here along the valance. These cars like to rust right up in here, right this spot here. Take a look at this. I got a scratch here. I'll have that repaired. All right, so next we'll be going on to the back trunk and roof. So on this, you want to make sure the trunk is aligned. You got a solid line there. You come to this side, and a solid line here. Make sure it's not super tight, but not extremely wide as well. You want maybe as wide as my pinky nail there. So that's about maybe half of an inch, if that. Check to make sure that this rubber stripping is good all along here. And check to make sure this is aligned. So you see mine, it's been pushed a little bit. You can push it back, but watch out for stuff like this. It could indicate if the car was in an accident, if it's really messed up. And it should only overhang a very tiny bit. If you see that it's pushed in, chances are this car's been in a rear end accident. You can check on this side too. See, these is probably maybe even done by the factory at one point, but these are supposed to be just a little bit, probably about right here. So this one's pushed too far this way, and this one's pushed too far that way. Very simple. You can gently push them back. So another thing, over the years, since these are plastic bumpers, they like to split. So what happens is the lining comes undone from the actual bumper, and what you can do is push it back in and then run another screw through it, or another bolt, if you can get lucky and save the actual retainer. Something that happens with these cars, nothing too big of a deal, but if you like your cars perfect, I would suggest doing that, even if it isn't broken. You want to check at the bottom of the bumper here, just check for bumps and scratches and everything. Nothing really too bad. Another thing on these cars, these muffler tips, they like to rot out. They should be, on 91 and 92s, they should be like this, where it's two separate sections. So you have 1 and 2. On 1990s, it should be 3 separate sections. A lot of times when these rot out, they become just one. So this whole front fascia right here just rots out. So another thing, so we'll come up to the trunk and then to the roof, and then we'll be done with the outside and we'll go on to the interior. So the trunk here, just check to make sure there's no bumps or scratches, stuff like that. Sometimes you'll see like little dings and dents, which you're really looking for on the trunk, the roof here, and the hood is for mainly hail damage. You don't want to see a whole bunch of little tiny dots or dents and scratches on these, because that will show that, you know, that it was either in a hailstorm or a tree branch may have fallen on it at one point. So you want to just make sure, go all the way around, check it all out, make sure there's no little tiny dents and scratches everywhere. That's a really big indicator that, you know, It had a tree branch. Now you see, I have tiny scratches on mine. This is from people setting their luggage or something on it and then pulling it off, not just taking it off. So, you know, it had to be paint corrected, probably even redone. That's another thing. Check for the clear coat. You want to have this gloss-like surface where, if you saw earlier, you can see pretty much the sky in it, or the sun, whichever one. And you know, it's supposed to look pretty glossy. You know, it shouldn't be all hazy or anything like that. I'm no master of paint, but you know, make sure that there's no bubbling underneath the paint. There's no, it looks like this haze, which is the clear coat coming up. So just check for that. Next, we'll move on to the interior. Now, everything in the interior is pretty important when it comes to how well this car looks. This interior is pretty darn good when it comes to that. It's probably about as perfect as it can get it. You want to check your door panels, make sure there's no rips or tears or anything like that in them. Check down here. Like, I have some stainage on the carpeting here, but I'm going to get that just cleaned out. Probably take a steam cleaner to it, I'd imagine. Make sure all your switches and dials and everything are good. You know, make sure they all work and, you know, they're not coming loose, all that. Make sure that your locks are in good condition, that you can press them without having to worry. That they do everything, pretty much. See, your lights work. Now, on these cars, a big thing, even on very low mile ones, I've been able to see a Toronado that only had 4,000 miles on it, and it had this problem where the door panel separates from this light. I don't know why it does that, but it just does. There's ways to do it, but you have to take the door panel off, and you have to push this back behind the light, and it should stay there. So it's a quick little fix, and it makes a heck of a lot of difference when you're doing it. Next, I want to show you is the dash. So the dashboard here has absolutely no stains, no cracks, no nothing. That's why I have this cover on it. It helps protect it, helps keep the sun rays off of it. Very good investment. You want to make sure that it has the correct mirror. All three settings should work at nighttime. Make sure that the wires are all good up top there. Another big thing with these cars, headliner. The headliner is huge on these because of how badly they always sag. Just like every other GM product I've owned. Every single time, the headliner is always sagged on these. But this one is in beautiful, beautiful shape. So, next we'll go to gauge clusters. We'll go ahead and start it up as well to get it warmed up. Your car should idle at about anywhere between, you know, 1,000 or so when it's first starting up. We can even look on here, which is another huge thing. You want to make sure, if your car has this, you want to make sure that your VIC works, because it is an essential part of this car. It controls the climate, it controls your radio, it has all your engine data on it. It's very, very important. So make sure that this works, because this is called the VIC, or the Visual Information Center. It is one of the most important parts of these cars. You can't get them replaced, can't get them repaired. To a certain extent, there's some things you can do by yourself, but sometimes they just go out, and capacitors inside there leak and corrode other parts of the motherboards. So make sure that this works. If your Trofeo has just the radio and climate control, so you'll have the climate control here and the radio down here, make sure that that both of those work. Luckily for those, the radios and climate controls are easy to replace and able to find ones for it, but they are expensive, so keep that in mind. Next up is the gauge cluster. So you want to make sure all your gauges and dials work pretty much self-explanatory. Make sure it shows the miles up top, right here. If it doesn't show the miles, you could have something wrong with your ECM, which is one of the problems that this car had, and how I got it so cheap as well. And at the end of this video, we will go over what the market prices are at this current time, and how to haggle your price to a certain extent. Want to make sure all your buttons and everything are good condition. You want to make sure there's no check engine lights, brake lights, ABS lights, nothing like that. Make sure all these buttons are in good condition and readable. Move on to the center console. Right here I have a delete plate, but usually these cars have either a cassette player or a CD player. I use this because I store my phone in there, and I usually have a cigarette lighter that I use, which is right there. I use it along with this. This here is a cigarette lighter Bluetooth radio, or you can hook it up straight to your aux. It's very handy to have, and you can just put it away, and it doesn't hurt the look of the car, and you don't have to have those cassettes that you don't have to have those cassettes that sort of stick out and could get stuck inside your cassette player. So just use that. Make sure that the cigarette lighter works. So, you know, you can test that by plugging in your phone or something like that. Check the actual cigarette lighter itself. See, there's only a bit of corrosion, but it's not burnt. So that means this was a non-smoker's car. You can see how clean on the inside of that is. It's never been used. Make sure this opens and closes very nicely. And check your shifter as well. It should switch into everything very easily. You shouldn't have to fight it or anything like that. Go into the glove box here. The glove box will always sort of have this weird gap. It's just the way GM fitted it. But it should open nice and easily. It should only open to about here because it has these restraint straps. But, you know, most of them break and they'll just flop on down. So be careful when you open these if you do not know the condition of it. Take a look at the Oldsmobile emblem. Make sure that's not broken. And then take a look at the other side door panel. Make sure there's no rips or tears. We'll move on to the seats here. Take a look at your seats. Make sure those are all nice. It should be very smooth. You should be able to press on it. One thing that happens with these seats is that they get sun-baked. So this front part here will become all hard and rough, and you will not be able to press into it without cracking it. Mine's got one crack here, but I'm going to restore that. Check in here for any rips and tears, and check up here by the Trofeo logo, because that's where it always rips up. Check the headrests, and do the same for the rear seats as well. Make sure there's no water leaking back there. Water likes to come in through these side little ports here and along the seams here. Another thing, this is what brings this car down to a 7, is because of this right here. I have a broken clip behind here. These are not easy to replace or even get replacements for. I have a little damage here as well. Here, let's see if I can sort of show that. But I have a little damage here as we go through. Check all across here. Check your headrests, or sorry, your sun visors. Make sure the lights come on when you open them. Do the same thing for the passenger side. That's pretty much it. You know, you can check your lights, make sure they work. You have the ones back there as well to check. Next, we'll move on to the engine / suspension. This will be the final part before I start explaining the pricing of these. So underneath here, I can right there is your hood latch. So we're going to go ahead and pull that. Should be nice and simple, nice and easy. Also, before I forget, check your steering wheel. Make sure no seam in here. Shouldn't be anything to worry about. You'll know if the airbag went off. All these buttons should be good. Also, up here, the airbag likes to do this. I've seen it on every single Trofeo. I don't know why it does this, but it does. It's just something that was a factory flaw from GM on these airbags. But nothing to worry about. They still work. Now that we have it running, come back here. We'll listen to the exhaust. Should be this nice mellow tone. And since it's a little bit cold out here, I have a small bit of white smoke coming out. That's fine. You do not want huge plumes of smoke coming out, because that could mean you're either your head gasket or your intake gasket. So, on to the engine bay. You want to make sure that the hood goes up and nice and easily. Check the struts, make sure there's no grease or grime around either one of these struts. If you do see grease or grime, you know, coming up out of here, that means that these struts are blown. Mine are in perfect shape. Take a look at the hood. It likes to rust in these areas all along this lip here. So make sure you check those very thoroughly. You know, take your hand and put it up underneath there. So now we have the engine. It should be running nice and smooth. It should be fairly quiet, about what this is here. You want to check your reservoir tank to see how well it is. You see that mine's almost to a full cold, because the engine isn't warmed up yet. Or sorry, I meant full hot, not cold. Check your battery, check the date on that, see how old it is. Check around the valve covers, make sure there's no oil. Check underneath here. All you have to do is pop this up and then take off this little screw here, which should just undo by hand. Check your sensors. A lot of times the MAF sensors will go out on these cars. Check your reservoir. Make sure it's nice and full. Got good fluid in it. Make sure you don't see any leaks or anything coming from that. Check your brake lines as well. Make sure they're not corroded. Look at your transmission. Make sure that there's nothing coming out from there. This car needs an intake gasket. You can see a bit of dampness there, but nothing too big of a deal. You just remove the intake, alternator, and power steering pump. Make sure that your alternator isn't making any type of noise, along with your power steering pump as well. You want to make sure to check the radiator, but make sure you do this when it's cold. Do not open this when the engine's been running for a while, because the coolant will come out at you. Check your washer fluid as well. Make sure there's nothing weird, or make sure it's not leaking as well. That's pretty much it for the engine bay. And then we have this front end assembly. These always seem to be damaged to a certain extent. So you always want to make sure to look over these, because these are expensive. You want to make sure there's no cracks or anything. You want to make sure this headlight motor works. You can check it by coming in here. We'll go ahead and shut this off. You can check it by pressing this button here for the lights. and it will bring your headlight doors down and your lights on. And if we press it again, it should go up with no problem. A lot of times I see what happens with these is it does this sort of winking motion where the motor's trying to catch and bring the headlight doors up, but it just can't. So it does this sort of like 1/3 style where it's like halfway up. It's weird, but that means your motor's shot, or your headlight motor I should say, which is this right here. They do make rebuild kits on them online, but they are expensive, of course. Nothing on these cars are really that inexpensive besides engine parts, but I digress. So now that you're a pro and looking at what needs to be done to a Toronado, what to look out for, what rust to look out for, I'm going to go over the pricing. So these cars in mint condition go for about $4,000 to $8,000 in mint condition. I'm talking about low mileage, no dents, no dings, no scratches, nothing like that. Now, for most people, they won't either get the chance to buy one like that, or that's completely out of their budget. So you want to get a good to fair conditioned one, something like mine, where it's not perfect, but it's definitely fixable and worth fixing. These cars can go anywhere between $3,000 to $1,000, depending on who you're buying it from. Always make sure that the buyer is either an old man or old lady. It doesn't have too many owners. I would say 3 or 4 at max, and check to see if it's just being carried out between family members as well. You can do Carfax reports by using the VIN number, which, well, it's covered up by my car cover right now, but the VIN number is right here. So I'll just look for this dip in the auto glass tint here. So you can search the VIN number, make sure this has no accidents reported, see how many miles it actually has, because the odometers on these cars only go to 199,000, and then it will reset back to 100,000 again. So you will never see a Toronado with 200,000 miles. So always be careful with that. GM never thought these cars would last this long, but as I've proven, these cars can last for a very long time if you actually take the effort to keep them going, because they are fantastic driving cars. I mean, very fantastic. One of the best, if not from Oldsmobile, I'd say. With the FE3 suspension and everything that goes into them, a very good buy for what the price goes for on these cars. Now you could even be me, or you can pick up these cars sub $1,000. It's hard. You have to know what you're looking for, and you have to know how to negotiate. Don't let it be your first car buy or whatever, because people will screw you over on that. Even my first Toronado, I got screwed over until pretty much a lemon. So as long as you know what to look for, follow this video pretty much religiously, and make sure to check everything. So without further ado, I'll end it here, and I wish everyone the best of luck when buying their Toronado.